Yeah, how are you?
Thank you, fine. And you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. Yeah. It's nice to be a bit later now that the discussions start. It's an hour later for me. I don't know what time. What time is it there in Germany?
Same, 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's much better, isn't it? Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here. So that's good. So Carmen, where are you then? Where are you? Where are you living?
The Netherlands. The Netherlands.
And
Like
whereabouts?
Nina. I just
Are you in The
moved.
Hague? Oh, you just moved.
I just moved to the south of the Netherlands. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And whereabout? What town is that then?
Same as Germany. We're totally the same. 9 o'clock hits here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
Hello, Carmen, just to interrupt a moment, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nina's having a problem joining. She's, would you mind just seeing if you can help her?
Yes.
Because I think she may be a bit worried about it.
Good.
Thank you very much. Carmen, she said she got a message saying leave meeting. I don't know. Better not to speak when this is on.
hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Alan. I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. And where are you nowadays? You Sydney?
We're in Sydney, yes. Oh, good. Nina's got in. Well done, Nina. Good to see you. Thanks for helping, Carmen. All good now. Thank you. I think Ajahn is ready to start now.
สวัสดีค่ะ
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 สวัสดีค่ะ อาจารย์
Everything all right now, Nina? Would you like to start?
I had some trouble
Okay.
but it's all right. I turned off my computer. I put it on again. Okay. Please start. Please start.
Shanti, would you like to start with the question you just asked on the list, which I didn't have time to reply to, about the Buddha's exhortation about the value of visiting the holy places? Would you like to bring this topic up for Ajahn and everyone?
Good morning. Well, I tried from what I remember of it. I came across a wrongly interpreted sutta taken as an invitation, and it's about watching a movie because they say, the Buddha said, if you have faith and confidence in my teaching, you should go to places where I was born, where I was enlightened, etc. So they translated the sutta using exactly the names Lumbini, Sarnath, well, there are two other ones that escape me now.
Buddhaya and Kusinara, yes.
Yes. So because I now understand that this cannot be, I looked up the sutta and there weren't places at all in it. And I also noticed that the Buddha said it's here. And maybe Sarah knows which sutta it is. But he, in my view, didn't say at all go to, but it was more to remember maybe that this is how it was for him. And also it was about very much now, and that there had been conditions for a Buddha to be born. And of course that's concept, but also realities beyond, underneath that. And that led to Panya and letting go, and then the extinction of the realities. That's a little bit how I can remember it now. So
and I think you also quoted a sutta, a translation.
Yes, that's what I was referring to, Sarah, because I can't remember the name.
I'll just read it out then, because I've got it in front of me. Ananda, there are 4 places, the site of which, not there. There are 4 places.
I was asking
Ananda,
how he could, when the Buddha would pass, would die, how he could, I don't know the verb, thank him or remember him or
pay respects.
pay respects, that's it.
But I think the point you sort of focused on was the sutta translation that you quoted says there are 4 places that a pious person should visit and look upon with feelings of reverence. What are the 4? The place where the Tathagata was born, became enlightened, set in motion the wheel of Dhamma, and passed away into parinibbana. So it was the point about should visit and should look upon with feelings of reverence. I think that was your question, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite a good topic to bring up because it's actually a very common idea in different Buddhist countries, in Thailand and Sri Lanka, in different countries, that everyone should go to the holy places to pay respect, and that this is something that is very important. And often there's the forgetting about this moment and the understanding right now, no matter where one is. So there's one point that one can pay respect and appreciate the place where the Buddha was born and enlightened by reflecting on the Buddha's virtues and the great wisdom to become enlightened and to set the wheel in motion by teaching the disciples and so on. But there's another point, that what is the greatest respect, as we've discussed, is the understanding right now, no matter where one is. But perhaps Sajan would like to add more, because it is a very common idea that everyone should visit the places to pay their respect rather than here and now, at this moment.
And just before Ajahn does come in, I think there's a problem with that translation, that particular translation also, because I checked a couple of others and they're more like not should go, but like one of them reads, there are 4 places, the sight of which should arouse emotion in the faithful. Which are they? That's one. And another says there are these 4 places that can be seen that produce enthusiasm for a faithful man of good family. So neither of those translations talks about or is in terms of something that should be done, which I think is more, as we know, and as you commented in your message, Shanti, that the Buddha doesn't tell people what they should do. And so, but of course, people who translate suttas sometimes use their own view of the teachings in the translation. And I think that's happened here also.
Yes, and words interpreted as the Buddha really said you should go, and if you go and do the pilgrimage, then you're reborn in heaven. And that's so short-sighted and also wrong.
No, he didn't say you will go to heaven. He said that if you die on the pilgrimage with saddha in your heart, then you will be born in heaven. Not that you should.
But this invitation didn't say that. They skipped these words and then.
Oh, okay. I see.
A bit like the Christian the Muslim promise that if you die, then you get, I don't know, 17 wives in heaven. Or so there's nothing left of the original.
Yeah, that's right. Just a brief word on the Pali. I haven't looked at the Pali, but I suspect it's something like gaccheya, which is not an imperative or a command. It's called an optative. So, you could use might or all those other words, but not necessarily should. So there are other range of words in the optative that can be used that implies this idea of, it's a possibility or you might do this rather than the should, which sounds a lot more imperative. A lot of translators sometimes, I think, struggle for another word that fits this. And as I said, I haven't looked at the Pali, but I suspect, as Jonathan intimated, that may have happened. Anyway, Tana Jankap, I'd like to hear what you think on this matter. Jankap.
To go anywhere is not a must at all. All depends on conditions. So each has his own motivation to do this and that, or to visit the holy places on. But to me, I think that when I went there, I thought about the place where Buddha once sat, and whatever he taught from here and from this place to another place, all over the place there. That's why it can be the reminder of his great compassion, his great virtue. And at that very moment, I think that at that moment, pay respect to the place where he was born and taught the teachings, enlightened and passed away. To pay respect to such quality of virtue once there in that place. So it doesn't matter at all for someone, even in the Buddhist time, a monk didn't visit Buddha at all. He had understanding of the enlightenment, but he didn't visit him. That's his nature, because he could think of the virtues of the Buddha and pay respect at any time when he understood the teachings and what were there as it was. So it depends on conditions. Someone just want to visit for pleasure or to pay respect, like being so respect, but in fact no understanding at all. So all depends on conditions. So once we walked there, that place was walked by the Buddha along the way, up the mountain, the Kuchikuta, and so on, and that at the Saranat and the first teachings, it's in the Buddha's time. What happened there? just like we were sitting at that moment when we were there, and so on. Just to be reminded of the virtues of his great compassion for us, to be able to understand the truth of whatever is there at that very moment. Just like paying respect by reflecting on the virtues of the Buddha, Buddhanusati and Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati, all are there to be visited, to be reminded of the place once, what happened there, and so on. Even right now, I'd like to visit again, see, because we have different conditions. Some would like to go to the mountain or to the sea resort and so on. But I think that many people would like to visit the holy places and have the understanding to be reminded of his teaching and so on. Just like to go somewhere as for rest, see, to the resort and so on. But this is much more resort for understanding and health, which is wholesome, not just the body health. So
But
it's not
Guru, isn't this only right thinking because there are no places in reality to go to?
what do you mean by right thinking?
Well, you say you'd like to go there.
Yes, because it's like reminded about the past, how long ago, 2000 and more than 100 years, what happened there.
But to go there is to do. It's a self that goes there.
Like when you recollect the past, you think about it with attachment or with aversion or with respect or with understanding, depending on conditions. So it's not a must, all by conditions.
Mm-hmm.
No rule to pay respect by walking around 3 times and so on. What were there could be the object of understanding, to let go. And that is a teaching, and we pay respect to the teaching of the truth.
So how is this different from going to a meditation center, going to a place to pay respect?
To understand what is there as it is. To say meditation center, what does it mean? What is center and what is meditation? Without understanding, it's wrong. To do something without any understanding at all. It has been done from years and years ago without any understanding of the truth.
But if the meditation center were around the place where the Buddha sat under the tree, what's the difference if the meditation center were the tree?
I think that the meditation center today means the place where people go to do something, trying to see or experience something, but without understanding of what is there at any moment, every moment. The truth is the truth. So I think that meditation is a place for people to go there, to try to do something, to experience something, but no understanding of the truth of this very moment at all. So any place or any word which does not condition the understanding of the truth of this moment, it cannot be the word of the Buddha, the enlightened one, which means enlighten the truth of what is there at any time, not at some certain place at all.
So how would we, at the places where the Buddha has been, which are concepts?
It depends on whether you think of the virtues of the Buddha or not. Even you were sitting there, no thought about the teachings, the truth, and his virtues, the enlightened one, at all. All depends. It can be moment of akusala, attachment, aversion, but the understanding can be conditioned when there's condition to understand it. And that's the point of no matter one goes to the holy place without any understanding and try to respect what? No understanding at all. Or it can be anywhere, anytime. There can be the moment of understanding the teaching. It can be right now to pay respect, great respect to the truth of reality that he had enlightened and taught about it for everyone to consider, to have one's own understanding. So it does not depend on the place. But when we have accumulation, would you like to the sea? Would you like to the mountain? What would you like to, where would you like to go, depending on the other? But what for? To go to the sea for what? To go to the mountain for what? To come here for what? Any place can be moment of understanding by conditions. Not one just want to experience and try so hard to keep one away from the real life, natural life, ordinary life, common life. How can there be the understanding? Because what is life? It's not the moment at the meditation center, but it's now. And to go somewhere without the understanding of this very moment, how can there be the understanding when one goes to that certain place? How come? But when there's the understanding of what is there now, it can condition moment of understanding whatever arises, whatever will come, because of understanding this moment. They're saying here, they're saying yesterday, they're saying tomorrow. Seeing cannot be changed because it is a reality, which is called seeing, or no need to call it any word at all, anything at all, because the nature of that is there already, arisen, experienced an object and then gone. That's the truth. So from understanding from where and how come to have such understanding without the word of the enlightened one, how can there be any understanding of the truth of where everyone is? Even at the holy place, or even now here, we can think about the past. And when we were there, it can condition moment of reflecting about the truth, the word, what Buddha did in the past and so on, just right there on the mountain, worshiping of something that you think about it or call it, and at the place where he was born, taught the teaching, the first sermon of the first teachings, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, or before his death, what were there with Malla, royal Malla, and so on and so on. It can be conditioned for different thinking by conditions with different conditioned moment. Hasn't been arisen before. Whatever is now hasn't been arisen before at all. Just one moment in lifetime, in eons and eons, never be the same at all. To let go, the clinging to the idea of I, last life, and I, next life, or I, this life, at the end of life, and so on. So
And
all
the,
this understanding of the truth now.
yes. Can you hear me now? Because I'm looking
Yes.
at another screen. Yeah. Thank you. The Buddha answering Ananda, what would he have meant if he says there are 4 places? Then it's not really a place, but it's I don't know, maybe you can say.
It's really the place, but what about what are there now and what were there then? But the place is still the same place, but not the same one, because even Rupa arises and falls away all the time until the end. by conditions.
And Shanti, you asked what is the difference between going to one of these places and going to a meditation center. A couple of points. First, the sutta makes it clear that it's a person of who has understanding is being spoken about, because it talks about a faithful person, saddha, I suppose. And as we know, saddha depends on understanding. It's not the same as the English word devout. And secondly, towards the end of the sutta, it explains that the person, it says that people, the lay followers and monks and nuns and lay followers will come thinking, here the Buddha was born for the first place, or here he awoke to the unsurpassed and perfect awakening. Here he set rolling the wheel of the teaching, and here he was finally emancipated. And so it talks about, obviously, reflection on the wholesome qualities and the attainments of the Buddha and the qualities of the Dhamma, and of those who became enlightened. So visiting these places is a condition for reflection on those kinds of things. So it's not going there with an idea of gaining more understanding or advancement in the Dhamma, but just because of one's appreciation of the wholesome qualities and the uniqueness of the Buddha and the teaching, the appreciation of those things, that one is motivated to go.
Then I was more clear before we now discussed, because I took here as now. And then it makes sense because we're talking about realities, and it doesn't make sense anymore even to go with understanding to a place, because the place is not real, and it's anymore the rupa anymore where the Buddha was enlightened. It's completely gone.
That's true, but it's not. It's like, say, the relics of the Buddha, the relics from his cremation. They are not the same as at the time of the Buddha, but they are a reminder. That's all.
And also, I'd like to say, Shanti, that something truly amazing and wondrous happened at that place. Now, we can, as we grow in Dhamma, it doesn't mean to say that we dispense with what we might call conventional truths, because there are certain places, conventionally speaking, and that doesn't contradict in any way our understanding of Dhamma. Like, we were talking before, there was talk before about the meditation place. Well, that's all motivated by ignorance. But as Jonathan said, that people go to these places with saddha in their heart because they're truly appreciative and deeply respectful of the wondrous thing that happened, that enables people to be free from samsara and the darkness that usually envelops the world. And we can be truly appreciative of that when there is so much darkness normally around. I think that we all have different accumulations, but it would seem to me that the more confidence and appreciation and wisdom there is, the more one will truly appreciate the amazing thing that this being, after trillions and trillions of lifetimes, attain to this state of wisdom that is incomprehensible to the average person. And as we grow in Dhamma, I think we will appreciate that, because the world is so seduced by ignorance and the horribleness that can bring to the world. Whereas he gave us a path that was so different to that meant truth and lightness of heart, that, you know, understanding that of the craziness and the stupidity that people can do. He revealed a way out of that craziness, out of that stupidity, and that's a truly amazing gift. And mostly we don't see that. We don't have that in the world. Mostly it's dark and horrible without any
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with all this appreciation. I do, but I still don't agree that there's more of that in a place, and it shouldn't be, because that's where there's lots of wars going on, because people in other religions are fighting for these places and attributing it. And I think I can have as much respect here as there, though maybe I will be inspired, but I still think it's loba to cling to a place.
Well, there certainly can be lopa. There's no doubt about that. That can arise at any time. I don't think it's necessarily particularly about the place at all. It's the place in our own hearts, or the place of wisdom in a particular person. Then that place can inspire. So it's not necessarily about the place, necessarily literally. It's what it can inspire in a person growing in Dhamma, that this amazing, truly wondrous thing happened here. Yes, you are correct. You know, there no doubt will be attachment in different ways, but that can't be avoided. That happens, as Tanajan was saying before, by conditions. It's going to happen by conditions. But there are many people, because of their accumulations, and because of the right conditions, and all sorts of other variables, they decide to go to these places. And I think, as Ajahn was alluding to, you know, to go to a resort and, you know, have fun and frolic in the sea, or whatever they do, or whatever you like to do, to some of these spa resorts or whatever, usually that is just pure lopa, mostly, can be mostly pure lopa. So these places and I think it's useful, because the Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, profound wisdom, talked about this. He said, this is so. And when a Samma Sambuddha says these things, I think it's useful to take note of that, and we can appreciate it. But he, as we were saying before, there's no should there. It's optative. It's in the optative tense, I suspect, when I look at it. So it's an option available by conditions that the Buddha, we can say, spoke to. And yeah, I don't think we can say much more on that, but I think it can be a truly inspiring place to be, especially if you died there. I can imagine that would be easily happen, that you would go to Devaloka. But yeah, more attachment we know, but you know.
And Shanti, I was going to just add, I'll continue, that if you went to a place of your childhood, there would be very mixed emotions, I imagine, you know, your old school or where you grew up or something like that. And the fact that you know from your study of the teaching that it's not the same place as it was in those days doesn't really matter at all. There's still the memories conditioned by past experience and memory and so forth. So it's the same, I think, for someone who has studied the Dhamma and has some appreciation for it. If they found themselves in a place that was the birthplace of the Buddha or where he became enlightened, it would have a special significance, and it would be a condition for some useful reflection about what one had come to understand, more so than but in a way that one didn't perhaps quite experience from in
I agree.
in another place. But yeah, go
on. I think the very important word you said is if.
Yes.
If you find yourself there,
Right.
But that's what we're talking about. I don't
Well,
find myself there.
Then I could say if someone offered to take you there, for example, or if a group of your friends was going, it doesn't mean that it's all attachment and blind faith or anything like that. Conditions, like when I was living in Bangkok, I went to the holy places because the Thai group was going, and so I could join them. So why not?
Yes, of course, conditions are the only answer, but I still think to present it like this, that the Buddha said that it would be favorable, is a ritual.
And the point is that it depends on the motivation, as Ajahn said. For some people, it is a ritual, just like reading the text or going to the foundation to listening to Ajahn. Anything can be a ritual, or like we discussed last time, chanting a sutta. It can just be a ritual with ignorance and attachment. So just like now, it comes back to the citta at this moment. For some people, being here, it's a condition for wise considering and understanding. For other people, it may just be a ritual. It's the same going to the holy places. So it depends on the motivation. And in truth, the motivation changes all the time. Like when I'm in the holy places, moments of great respect and appreciation, moments of attachment, moments of dosa when one's being jostled along or the conditions are difficult. So many different cittas, just like now. So it just depends on conditions, like when we open the Dhamma book, whether there is wise reflection or whether one's just reading with attachment and no respect at all.
Yes, and I think the more important question why I posted it is that Kongsu Jin always says we have to read the Tipitaka in the same way. So also this sutta should be read in the same way as the Satipatthana Sutta. And then what do we make of it? That was the real question.
Yes, well, that's why I highlighted the translation that you had posted as being not a very good translation, and a better translation is that if a person goes there out of confidence in the teaching, that is based on their understanding. I mean, if those places were in your own country, for example, it's not such a big deal. For us, we think, okay, it involves international travel and all this sort of thing. But if it was in one's own country and one was just going there on one's own without any big to do about it, it'd be a different matter. So
I still don't think we're going to the point I'm wanting to go to. I want to go to realities, and it's for me the same as we shouldn't read the Satipatthana Sutta as we have to go to the forest, we have to sit down under a tree. We don't even have to sit down. So now I want to go back to this sutta and realities, how the Buddha would have meant it. Still, well, I don't like the word place.
The Buddha revealed those realities. The Buddha revealed those realities. So I think that's very relevant, and it can be a condition for a deep appreciation for helping us to understand those realities. Yes, it's a different place. And so I just think it's ultimately about what's in our own heart, and it's not necessary that we should go there. If your friends are going and there are the right conditions, then I think it's a good thing to do. But I wouldn't never coerce people or use that should word. I just say, well, it's up to you. You know, maybe you don't want to go, maybe you do. But I think the more, as I read it, the more appreciation. If your friends were going and they gave you the opportunity, I think it would be a wonderful thing to take opportunity of, to perhaps hear Dhamma from other friends, from people who are wise and appreciate the Dhamma. So it can be a lot of conditions for growing understanding of the teachings and useful reflections while you're there. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't have useful reflections and useful Dhamma talks other places. But yeah, it's just the way
We're
it
not
is.
talking about realities now.
Yeah, I think on the question of place, I suppose the Buddha knew that regardless of anything he were to say or not say, people would want to visit these places. So I think this is spoken for those who are inclined to go and visit the places.
But in terms of realities, we cannot go anywhere. Why are we not talking in terms of paramatta dhammas in here?
Because the teaching is about realities, but mostly couched in conventional terms. So it's like in the Satipatthana Sutta, it talks about the cemetery contemplations. It doesn't mean that we should go to a cemetery and contemplate, but people in those days were seeing dead bodies. So he spoke about it.
But I do agree with what Shanti is saying, because we are now using the same, how do you say that, arguments for these places as we use for the centers, going to a meditation center. And that is, for me, also not working in my mind.
So actually, as Chanti says, there are just conditioned dharmas, like we talk about coming here to listen to the Zoom discussion. But in truth, there's no there's no Zoom discussion, and no one goes anywhere. There are just different chittas and different rupas conditioned at each moment. But as a shorthand, we use the conventional terms to say, oh, we've come here for the discussion because it's useful to consider the Dharma and pay respect to the Buddha's teachings, especially to the importance of developing understanding. But actually, in truth, no one goes anywhere. And like Ajahn gave the example of the monk who never went to even visit the Buddha. So when there's more understanding, there's more confidence that one doesn't have to follow what others do. One doesn't have to go to Thailand because everyone's going to Thailand, or go to India because everyone's going to India, because what is most precious is the understanding at this moment. And like we discussed last time when we were talking about Buddhanusati, paying respect to the Buddha and the virtues, it depends on understanding, not on the text we're reading, not on the chanting, not on the place we're going to. So this is correct. So it's just by accumulations and different motivations as to whether one goes here or there or stays at home. But actually, it comes back to the understanding at this moment. And I think this is the point you're both making.
I wonder if I could just maybe add to that, Chanti, because I understand you're looking for consistency, and I think that that's perfectly valid. It's interesting, though, that Ajahn stressed the different accumulations that exist, and that accumulations are part of the conditionality of existence. And so I think it's possible for accumulations to motivate organizing a trip to the holy place, etc. And for there still to be understanding that that is coming about through the, I suppose, the strength of accumulation, which is another factor in how there is no self, that everything is conditioned. But that doesn't exclude the reflection around what you're saying, which is everything is basically realities, nama and rupa. But there's a complexity to it, I think, that we have to acknowledge. When we talk about conditionality, it's a very complex environment.
I think that's beautifully summed up, Maeve, really. You've said it, the subtleties and the delicacies of that so well. And I liked using that word, people look for consistency. And I don't think it is inconsistent with Dhamma that people want to go or choose to go to the holy places. I think you said it much better than I'm saying it.
I don't know. It's just I do appreciate where Shanti's coming from, and Carmen too, because we're trying to, part of it, Shanti, is I think we're trying to unravel this intellectually, which actually we can only go so far in that direction, but there needs to be some clarity around it. I appreciate that.
Yes, you may. Thank you. Your word of consistency is exactly spot on. Feeling some inconsistency, and I'm actually quite surprised at the direction the discussion had. I thought it would have been much shorter. Just like we're always coming back to what Sarah says, it's now. There are no places, there are no people going anywhere, and we can have as much appreciation and respect for the Buddha here. And also, it's the only way. There is only now. And I didn't hear that a lot. So yeah, that was confusing. Thank you.
I would like to say something that if I had the when I read about Savatthi and Bodh Gaya, I am interested to go there, but I certainly don't entertain the hope or possibility that it will happen. Conditions are such now, what with COVID, and there will be other viruses and things coming along the way, that I probably will never see these places. Also, there are individuals in this world who are probably very devoted to the path and so on, who are elderly, who are very sick, or who haven't the finances to fund such a journey. And so if it were a requirement, then these people wouldn't have any chance to progress any further along the path. So I like how Ajahn puts it, how it happens all quite naturally, and there is nothing to be convinced of or to being talked into doing something. It just all happens quite naturally. Thank you.
Thank you too. Yes, I agree with naturally, but this is not where we started from a sutta and how to interpret it. I agree that it's perfectly fine when things happen naturally by conditions. But that's different if we go to the sutta where the Buddha is giving advice and how to interpret it. That was where the consistency got lost.
And I think that Ajahn puts it or sums it up in that to do something without understanding is wrong. So I guess that in that sentence, a lot comes together.
Shall we suppose now we will sitting together at Chetawan or any one of the four places? And what we're talking, suppose is there, all depends on understanding, because people around, they live there for a long, long time. But do they have any understanding of the place at all? No understanding what place is from in the past up to present moment. The place is the place, but what happened there? By conditions. Can be no understanding at all. Like people around the Chetawan today, they don't understand what that is the meaning of Chetawan at all. What that place is for them, it doesn't mean anything at all. But for those who listen to the teachings and understanding that there is a place of 4 places that Buddha is taught and so on, that we know the importance of the place. For example, the place where the Buddha was born, see, without the accumulation of parami, it's just the same place. Nothing happened at all. But what happened there, and it's real, and it's there, and at moment of sitting there, they can be thinking, recalling about what he taught, and so on. So through each word that can be studied and to be understood anytime, and understand the teachings the best way, that the place is important when there is the understanding of the truth. That once Buddha was there, being born or died or taught, that's all. So suppose we were there now. We have different ideas, different understanding, different thinking about the teaching, about the sutta, about the places. But what about the understanding? The place is just the place, but what is the importance? Where we Buddha born and so on. See, just that. Why
So, Chanti,
to see the parents, just to pay respect, with respect and so on. All depends on conditions.
so Chanti, what I understand Achan to be saying is that where you are right now wouldn't be, if you think about it, condition the idea that, oh, this is where the Buddha was. And then therefore a reminder to about his teachings. But if you were there in Savatthi or any of those other holy places, you couldn't avoid such associations. And having made such associations, it can be a condition for you to remember the Dhamma.
I agree. There's nothing wrong with that if I were there. But that's if.
And also, when Achan was telling earlier about she having the accumulations to go there, as different from some people who would rather go to a resort to enjoy themselves or something like that, is saying that it's her accumulations that it's her gratitude, her confidence and faith in the Buddha's teachings, which inspire her to want to go there. And which shows that for such a person, going there with the understanding, there will be understanding. On the other hand, if someone does not have that kind of accumulations, he would want to go somewhere else. Or if he has wrong understanding, he goes there, as you correctly point out, that will go with the idea of self and wrong understanding. So it's no use. But there is a difference that, as you were saying earlier, at one point you said that if you were inspired. So we're talking about being inspired in the right way. So there could be conditions for inspiration to go there, and not necessarily wrong. It can be with kusala and with understanding.
I agree completely that if there are accumulations, if it's natural, I completely agree.
And perhaps the Buddha didn't say that you must, and perhaps the Buddha wasn't saying that you must, everyone must, but just being a reminder that if there was enough understanding and confidence, it would be good to go.
Yeah, but I think it's still moha that there is a place.
No,
where things happen.
I think what you're saying is that it's almost like if there's right understanding, then one wouldn't think in terms of a place.
Yes.
Ever.
Yes.
Ever. I mean, then there's no functioning, there's no act. If there was no thinking in terms of
one's home,
where you
one's room, one's bedroom. These are places. The kitchen.
Well, isn't that what we're
place.
discussing here all the time? They're not there in reality.
But
in terms of understanding.
No one is saying one doesn't think in terms of time and place. It's just they are not realities.
Exactly. And
so
that's my.
When one thinks about time and place, the person with developed understanding has no misconception as to their significance, but they are convenient labels and they're in fact essential for living in samsara. The person who becomes enlightened still thinks in terms of time and place, but without any wrong view.
Yeah, but what I'm missing here is what Sarah did, talking in terms of realities.
So
why are we all the time
life goes on as usual. So, for example, I'm used to going regularly to visit Ajahn to pay respect, but impossible with COVID and health issues. And as you say, understanding and respect could be any time. But life carries on. One still goes on a trip, or one goes here, one goes there. But in truth, there are only realities. There's no Ajahn, there's no trip. The respect is in the citta at any moment, but that doesn't mean that one doesn't eat certain kinds of foods or go to certain places or visit one's parents or do one's job, because these are all concepts. They're realities which are being discussed by way of concepts. That's all. So the moments of paying respect or motivating one to go on a certain trip, those moments of true respect are wholesome, different from the many moments of attachment. So even though in truth there's no aeroplane, there's no trip, these are just concepts to represent the different realities conditioned by different cittas.
I mean, would there even be hearing the Dhamma without thinking?
No, I'm not. No, that's not the point. When we're going to a teacher and we're meeting on Zoom or we're going live to Kunsujin, that's for understanding, that's for hearing. But when we're going to a place, there's no hearing, there's no, I mean, Rupa, and I want to also stress the point that everything is gone. I mean, there's nothing left of the 2,600 years ago that this all happened.
It's like opening a Dhamma book, opening a sutta now with ignorance or with understanding by reflecting on those words. One actually is paying respect to the Buddha, and there is understanding at those moments of wise consideration. So the more understanding has been accumulated, the more understanding arises naturally when reading the sutta. And it's just the same in the holy places or when one visits a wise teacher. There are conditions for understanding, not because I'm going to have understanding, but it just happens naturally. So for some people, it's part of their daily life to open a sutta or listen to the audio as you're doing, or to discuss here on Zoom. Not I'm joining Zoom or I'm reading the sutta to try to get something, but naturally that becomes part of one's daily life. So it's just the same if there are accumulations to visit those places, to pay respect because of the understanding that's been accumulated. It just becomes a very natural way to do, way to act.
And I think your point about hearing, Chanti, is appropriate and is relevant to the question of going to a place such as the meditation center just as an example, because what is going to be heard there, if it's the true Dhamma, well, fine. But if it's not the true Dhamma, but something masquerading as the true Dhamma, then obviously it's not capable of being beneficial.
In a way, I might think of coming here, attending virtual attendance at the Dhamma Center via Zoom, or paying respect to my mother, or showing respect or appreciation for Dhamma. Ajahn is presenting Dhamma and living Dhamma. So why bother with anything, because my mother isn't real and doesn't exist? But the fact of, my experience is, when there's metta or appreciation, then there's a natural following through and a desire to act on that. So I am in this world of rupa, in this plane of existence. And when there is thirst, then the natural action to follow through on that is partake of nutriment, cool water. And these Dhamma discussions are a form of nutriment. And let's say I did have the funds and the ways and the means and the restrictions, and the way was open to go to Bodh Gaya or Savatthi. And there would be maybe many, many people there, and meditation teachers and whatnot. But on the slim chance that I would meet someone with understanding, then it's all worthwhile. Prior to meeting Ajahn or the Dhamma Center where I would listen to discussions, if I rode by and someone said, well, there's the Dhamma Center, and I knew nothing about it, just years and years ago when I was a little girl and knew nothing about it, it would be completely meaningless. But now that I do know, it has significance.
And Eve, would you not say that that's exactly what the people during the Buddha's time felt? They felt that they had heard something true and valuable, so they kept on going to the Buddha. And it does not contradict going to the Buddha and the understanding, the teachings, his teachings about understanding anything, all realities at all times. There's no contradiction. Because everything is conditioned. You're here because it's conditioned. You go somewhere else because it's conditioned, and there's no self. So when you hear, that's when you reflect on it. That's a reminder and about the teachings and who taught it. So there would naturally be thinking about the Buddha with gratitude, and you want to go and listen and pay your respects, etc. And on the other hand, when someone compares that this is coming to a Zoom discussion is no different than going to a meditation center, I'd like to point out that the difference is this, that coming to a Zoom discussions to hear about the truth, that there's only Dhamma and any time is the right time for understanding, is not a contradiction when you come or not come. On the other hand, meditation centers talk about understanding only there and not here. So that's a contradiction.
Yes, Kun Sukin, I am well spake. I am in accord. You said that very well. And this discussion is of great value to me today. I love to hear this discussion, and it's a wonderful thing. I wonder, where would I be without these discussions to keep it going, especially during this time that I've met Chanti and other people I wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity to have met, and to listen to all this input from all these other people, to join with wise people, to listen, to hear Ajahn, and to to be refreshed and encouraged to continue when conditions can be difficult at times. I was reading just the other day about, concepts aren't bad. They're a part of living in this plane of existence, and that even before rebirth linking in a sublime realm is that a concept may be presented at that time. So I appreciate what you said, Kunsukin. Thank you.
And I also want to stress that my respect and big awe and appreciation for Kunsujin's Panya is growing moment by moment and moment by moment. And this is so precious, and I want to bring it back to now. And yes, no words can express my gratitude. And well, it doesn't matter. I still stick to my point about places and consistency. But yes, in this moment, I'm so honored. I'm also a little bit worried that I joined so late. I've missed all these years, these opportunities, because Kunsujin has been sharing for many, many years. But that's Kusala. And I'm just very, very grateful for this Panya. Thank you deeply.
And any Panya and the wise teaching, in truth, is the Buddha's teaching. As the Buddha said, even Sariputta's great teaching or Ananda's great teaching is actually Buddha Vachana. So it is the Buddha's teaching that we're really paying respect to when we appreciate hearing what is good and right. And so how does one pay respect to the Buddha and to his great teaching? So for different people, according to different accumulations, they pay respect in different ways. For some, it may be honoring those teachings by visiting those places. For others, it may be never leaving home, but just appreciating the value of understanding right now. So what is most important, as you've been stressing, is the understanding here and now, however life goes on, however our lifestyle leads us, all according to different accumulations, no rule at all. And that's really the important point.
And it's so very, very, very unique that Kunsujin is alive. She can answer in this moment. And although, of course, I understand it's the Buddha's teachings, but the hearing is now, and I cannot start to express. Of course, I'm including all of you, Sarah and Jonathan and everyone.
And some people listen their whole life, but still miss the main point about Dhammas as anatta. And some listen for a short time and really appreciate the value of what is being heard. So it's not a matter of how long or how short or being too early or being too late. It's about the understanding and the appreciation of what is true right now. And the fact that you are here every time and listening to all the discussions shows the appreciation of listening to what is true. So forget about the past, forget about the wrong view yesterday. It's all gone. It's the understanding now that it's precious.
Yes, exactly. So I'm forgetting about the places and deep bow.
Yes, good. That's the important point. I actually sympathize and understand a lot of your questions, because you often bring up topics that I used to bring up, like the first time I went on a trip to India and everyone was walking around the stupas 3 times. And I would say to her, Jan, I don't want to do that. I don't see the point of it. And she said, no need at all. You can just sit on a rock and relax, and no need to follow the others. And Nina will remember the time we went to the Temple of the Tooth in Kandy, and everyone else had great respect, and Kusala Cheetahs. For me, I was had strong dosa because everyone was pushing and shoveling. It was hot, and I thought everyone was behaving very badly, trying to push to get to the front.
I think you cried.
I know. I thought it was the most terrible place because everyone was pushing and shoving so much, and how can this be respect? So it depends on the moment and the accumulations. No rule at all, and that's the point.
Yeah, I went with Acha to countless times to India, to the holy places, and I didn't think much about it, but it was my conditions, and I was just happy to have so much opportunity for discussions on Dhamma, and I had time to put my problems before my problems in daily life with my father, and Ajahn answered, and I had the opportunity to consider the Dhamma in this way. So I was just happy to go there.
Same for me. I think it was the opportunity to just spend time together, having discussions in the holy places. That was very valuable.
Yeah. So Nina, Sarah, the place may be more than just rupas. It can be the company in that place too.
Yes, if one was there just with some friends, without any interest in the teaching, just kind of like sightseeing, then not so much value. But when one's sitting, for example, in Jetavana, discussing Dhamma and reflecting on how this is just how the Buddha's disciples would sit around and listen to the Buddha, and it's much more meaningful.
Yes, and Nina.
I never worried about is a place real or not real. I'm just happy to be there and have the opportunity by conditions or.
And Nina also wrote books about Ceylon and Vietnam and brought to life places, things, events that had already taken place, but I can read about it in her books. And this discussion reminds me of when the Buddha was passing, and so many people had come to him to pay respect. And there was an elderly disciple, if you will, who was he was also near his end, and he went ahead to the front of the line. He went to the Buddha and received blessing, heard a word of Dhamma, and I'm so touched by everything that Sarah and Nina are saying and the discussion today.
Thanks, Eve. It's very nice to hear your contributions. And go on, Janti, and then I was going to ask Ajahn for any
pay
further
respect was my question, like Ananda asked the Buddha, how, Kun Sujin, can we pay respect to you and your wisdom?
Ajahn Cup?
That's a question for you, Ajahn.
Okay, what's the object of respect?
Ooh. Right now, it doesn't come an answer. I don't know.
Wholesomeness, wholesome reality, and the panya so great that can condition moment of understanding the truth of this very moment. Does anyone respect the truth and respect the person who enlightened the truth, which condition the eradication of ignorance or unwholesomeness, absolutely, ultimately, never to arise again. So it's not just respect anyone, but it's respect the truth. What is that? What is Buddha and who's the Buddha? The enlightened one. And what enlightened? The high panya, highest panya, greatest panya. Understand everything as it is and its conditions for anything to arise to. Is that not that which should be respected?
Yes, of course.
That's the understanding of what should be respected, not the ignorance, craving, and all unwholesome realities, but the reality, especially the great one, the best of all kinds of realities, which is understanding the truth. Not me, not anyone at all, but the greatest right understanding from the Buddha, the enlightenment, can condition the way to get away of ignorance, get away from ignorance and attachment and all unwholesomeness very gradually, but very effective. Nothing can perform the function of right understanding at all. And it has to be from the very beginning, understanding the truth as no one but understand each reality clearer and better. For example, the Chitta and the Chittasika and Rupa. Otherwise, there must be the idea of something is seen and experienced through the six doorways as something all the time. But what is the absolute truth of that very moment? Even eons and eons ago, and even in this life, is hidden without the teachings about it. No one can consider and begin to understand the truth. And at that very moment, it is panya, right understanding, not ignorance as usual, different ones. That's why even the object of respect must be real, and the reality which is respected has to be only panya. Without panya, how can there be the understanding of what is there now as it is? Little by little, to be truthful to the truth in this life.
When I'm listening to you on the audio tapes of Bangkok 2013, I'm very inspired when in lunchtime or something you were telling Lucas about how your teacher, your only teacher, was Ajahn Nai, and even she had wrong interpretations, and I'm so very appreciative of your panya, and I'm very inspired and like to know more about your life and how it's possible that this right understanding with no teacher telling you came about. And well, I'd like to pay respect to where you were born and where you were learning and hearing and understanding.
I think that someone can tell you about it, but Ajahn Nat is my teacher. But the real teacher must be the enlightened one. When there is the understanding, you can understand what word is the word of Buddha and what word is not the word of Buddha. Like the teacher of Sariputta, when Sariputta knew what is the right teaching, he went to see his teacher, and he realized that his teacher did not understand the truth at all. See, only right understanding can understand what is right and what is wrong. But when you got some understanding from anyone or got something good from anyone like parents, you know that even there's no permanent parents at all, but who did so good deed to you, bring you up to be this person right now. So we pay respect to wholesomeness, and that is the way to pay gratitude to that person. That's all. But all are dhammas, and there's unwholesome and different wholesome. Everything is just only one reality, but it's not just only one the same all the time. Just one which arises and falls away and never to return at all. Just have the confidence of the truth that what is said from the enlightened one can develop to understand what is there now, because what he taught is to understand what is there now, right now. But it's not time yet to directly understand the truth of it. Just hearing about it, consider the truth, and have more confidence, tirasanya, to condition moment of thinking about it anytime in a day. Because even today, how many times there is moment of thinking about the truth? It can be none at all, but it depends on conditions. So right understanding, understand how much understanding of what has been heard about the truth of this very moment is strong enough to condition moment of, instead of thinking about other things, it thinks about.
And Ajahn often says, when she explains something, is this true or not? So people have to think for themselves. And that is what Ajahn did. Because when she was in the meditation center, and then she realized, but seeing here is the same as seeing somewhere else or seeing in the meditation center, no difference. So she really considered by herself, and then she stopped going to meditation center, not necessary, because they're seeing anywhere and it is the same, just seeing.
It's very important to hear about this, Nina, because Kun Sujin is an example which is, I think, not appreciated enough, that Kun Sujin had this understanding of her own. There was no living person. I mean, this is a miracle, and
It's
so
actually,
much confidence also.
But it's thanks to the Buddha's teachings, because if, like for her or for us, if she hadn't heard and read the Buddha's teachings, impossible to understand even that it's just seeing now, which sees without the access to the Buddha's teachings. And you asked about how to show respect, how to show appreciation, and someone's phone. The way to show respect or show appreciation, the greatest respect is through understanding, the developing of understanding. And it's the same with regard to the Buddha and his teachings. The greatest respect is the development of understanding right here and now. No doubt about it at all. So it is the understanding. I remember when Nina, or remember when it was either Jan's 80th or 90th birthday, I forget which, and people wanted to write articles about her life and their great appreciation for her. And she said, absolutely no, not at all. You remember, Nina, and Lodevik wanted to write an article. Many people wanted to. And she said, no, not at all. It's not the right way. The right way is just the understanding of Dhamma right now and the sharing of the understanding of the Buddha's teachings. Otherwise, one just thinks about the person.
But for us, like, it's inspiring to read about the Buddha's life and Sariputta's life and Ananda. I mean, the little bits are so inspiring, and it's a bit like these places. I mean, they are concepts, but yet very inspiring. And I would love to hear more about it. And I really like to stress again that, yes, they're the teachings of the Buddha, but Kun Sujin, against all odds, because there were only teachers telling her the wrong way when she was asking questions, had confidence to listen to well, I don't know what the answer is, realities now, and considering, and well, yes, I'd love to hear more about it.
And it's just like now, whatever one hears, like hearing about what was said about the holy places, it has to be one's own understanding and one's own confidence that develops with the understanding, not just following what the other says or thinks, but the understanding here and now. So whatever one hears, whether it is from Ajahn or anyone else. There has to be the questioning and the considering and the wise reflecting again and again to really appreciate what is true at this moment, so that understanding can develop naturally.
And Shanti, I understand your interest and inspiration. However, going back to what you were looking for earlier in terms of places, that consistency even has to, or maybe especially has to be applied when we are moved, and you are moved to know more about Ajahn. So the idea of Ajahn somehow being more real or more worthy or something like that can actually be an obstacle for seeing that the idea of Ajahn, as Sarah keeps stressing, is really no different to the idea of someone else. It's the idea of the self, etc. But very tempting, very tempting to not to want to do that in this case.
And Maeve, wouldn't Ajahn pay respect to the Buddha and know that without his teachings, she wouldn't be having any understanding?
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you, Maeve, speaking beautifully.
Ajahn, I wonder if I may ask a question. Are you there, Ajahn?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ajahn. Hello. Are
Hello.
you well, Ajahn?
No, all right.
Ajahn, in a discussion a little while ago, you mentioned the importance of knowing the nature of the characteristic of the reality that arises. And I wonder if you could just say a little more about that, whether you were referring to something other than like the three characteristics of anatta, anicca, and dukkha. Were you referring to anything else besides that when you said the nature of the characteristic of the reality?
It can be understood right now because what is there is real, reality, but it is different from the other. Like rupa is not nama, that which cannot experience, and the experiencing. Only this is not difficult to understand the meaning, but the nature of that which experiences an object. At moment of thinking, it experiences an object, and at moment of seeing, what is seen is experienced by that which arises and experiences it, knows it. That what is it which appears at moment of hearing, knows what is that which is heard. That must be the sound, and if there's no hearing at all, can there be the moment of know that there is a reality which is sound, which is heard right now? For the reality which cannot experience an object, it seems like it's not difficult to understand the truth, but in truth, the truth of it does not appear at all. It appears as something, not as its nature, like that which is seen. What is the nature of that which can be seen? If we think that it's a doll, a table, without that which can be seen, can there be the idea of a table or a doll?
No.
That's right. Even the understanding of that which is now experiencing an object is not easy at all. Just know that it's our reality. That's why what we take for self is that which arises and experience an object. When there's no one around at all, only the moment of hearing, how can there be anyone hear that word? But the hearing itself is there. But it's not understood as it is just a reality conditioned to arise, to experience just the sound which is heard only. So at that moment, ignorance and attachment is taking it for it's I who hear. So even the reality which arises to experience is known from hearing, considering, but as long as it does not show up, how can there be the moment of letting go, doubt, and attachment and ignorance of that object as I anymore? Even one word has to be studied at moment when it's there, right now. There can be moment of thinking about that which is seen all day. I see this, that, those, many things around. But what is the seeing, the innermost? It's there, unknown. And even we're hearing right now, the reality which experiences arises and falls away, experience an object all the time. Who knows that? Who knows the characteristic which has no shape, no form, no color, no sound, no taste at all, only that which arises and experience. And there has to be doubt because at this moment there is that which is seen and heard all day. But what about that the innermost, which experiences that object? So even the cetasika, the mental factor, shows up as anger or attachment when it's there. Pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling. But it's not the chief of experiencing an object, but it shares the same object because it arises with the citta, the chief of experiencing. But it does not perform that function. It performs the function of taking that object with attachment or aversion or ignorance. That's why we learn to understand that this is the intellectual understanding, but not the direct understanding of the truth, the nature of that which arises and experience an object, because they arise and fall away in a split second of a split second. So very, very rapidly. That's why even what is experienced can be just the succession, the image of that which arises and falls away. But just one reality cannot be the object of right understanding. That's why what Buddha said, all dhammas, sankhara dhammas, appear as nimitta of the five khandhas. No matter what kind of rupa is experienced, there are so many moments of experiencing that object, enough to be known as its hard or soft, or the degree of hardness and softness, degree of taste, very bitter taste, and so on. That's why they are there, unknown. But without those reality which arise to experience an object, can there be anywhere or anything?
It actually makes it clearer that understanding that it's by the nature of that which experiences, and that is it concerns all experience, that there cannot be a self.
And
That it is
the
nature, not the
understanding, the
self.
difference between citta and cetasika can condition more letting go of the idea of self.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But this is only intellectual understanding level, because it's not directly understand what is there now as it is, only one at a time. That's the meaning of as it is. And even only one characteristic, it's the nimitta, the image of that, which is the same characteristic which arises and falls away, enough to be shown or appear as that characteristic. So how much ignorance is there? But it can be letting go little by little, very subtle now. Who knows? No one, but all cetasikas arising with citta performing the function from time to time, moment to moment. nothing left at all. And that can be directly experienced. Otherwise, it cannot let go the idea of self, which has been accumulated years and years ago. To understand the truth that what we heard is now appearing, but not enough understanding. It can be more understanding when there's letting go of the wrong idea about it as permanent thing. It does not show up the moment of arising and falling away at all, but that is the absolute truth.
It appears,
Yes.
it appears as something or as just a reality. It's very difficult for us to follow because we understand intellectually, but the answer is, I think, that there is not yet the direct understanding, and that is the only way to understand the deep meaning of all these things that you are explaining just now, because we find it difficult to follow it really.
Actually, no one at all. But what is there is there. And seeing is seeing. But the seeing does not appear as it's not anything else. It's only that which sees, only that which now sees. Just develop the understanding and see that sanya is firm, tira sanya, sensual, because it's there as it is, all gone. What about that sound just a moment ago? Never return, never to arise again. The truth is so true, but ignorance is accumulated. How long has it been accumulated? So there's no understanding of what is there at all in a day without the understanding of what the teaching is about this very moment. The truth of that which begins to be understood, the difference between the intellectual understanding and the moment when it's direct understanding with understanding, which is conditioned by the intellectual understanding. To understand that, otherwise, without understanding, no matter what would happen, no understanding again and again and again. But when there is a little more understanding of this moment, it can condition the next understanding a little more, unknown at all. So very subtle. And this is how the reality is so subtle. After his enlightenment, Buddha said, all dhammas are so very subtle because it's there now. But the truth of it does not appear yet because only understanding only can understand the way it is, the nature of it, as no one at all. Seeing is just seeing and hearing is hearing. We don't mind, we don't select because it's I again by conditions. No expect to experience sound, no expectation to experience hardness, there's nothing in it, all by conditions because even right now, hardness appears but no understanding. Or the understanding is not enough to experience it. Just one reality, nothing is there. Otherwise, how can it appear clear when something together arising with it? But when there's nothing at all, only that which is experienced, what is there? No world, no thing, and no one. And at that moment, the reality which experiences it can be known that it is not that which is heard. No expectation. Otherwise, it hinders the truth. Because what is there? Who can expect next moment right now? So how can there be the expectation to experience such and such at will? Impossible. Because even the will is a reality. No one there at all. That's why whatever is real at any moment cannot be taken for self because it's wrong. That which is taken for permanent is not permanent at all. so very rapidly, just arise and falls away, unknown, until the understanding of the truth develop and let go the wrong understanding. So it can condition moment of what is there can be attended as a reality, and later on more understanding of it as what it has been heard before, hardness only at the moment when it's a sound, only when it appears at that very moment, little by little. And this is a subtle way to let go wrong understanding, which takes whatever is there as something or I from life to life. So it's this moment, next moment, and after moment to be understood. As it is, it's not there anymore.
And made one point on the characteristics. So we have to know when we're listening whether what is being referred to are the particular, the individual characteristics of different realities. The characteristic of seeing is different from the characteristic of visible object. The characteristic of hearing is different from that of seeing, and so on. So without understanding the individual characteristics of different realities, there cannot be the understanding of the common characteristics, the universal characteristics of all conditioned realities, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. For example, if there's no understanding of the characteristic of the reality of visible object, there cannot possibly be the understanding of the arising and falling away of that reality, or the unsatisfactoriness of that visible object because it's taken for something. So there has to be the understanding of the particular characteristics of different realities in order for the deeper understanding to directly understand the common characteristics of all conditioned realities.
Actually, thank you, Sarah, because that, I think that was probably underpinning my question about that link. When Ajahn said about the nature of the characteristic. So the nature is about whether it is a specific characteristic versus the, as you say, the universal, although they both actually have to exist, well, not simultaneously, but concurrently. Is that right?
For example, from the beginning, there has to be the beginning of understanding the visible object as just that which is seen. And there also has to be the beginning of understanding that it's just a Dhamma. It's not something, it's anatta. So it has to begin to develop together, but without understanding what is reality, visible object, not computer, not something, impossible to understand anything about those common characteristics, anatta, anicca, dukkha. So people talk about understanding the arising and falling away of realities in life, but they have no understanding what reality is. So there has to be the beginning of understanding what is reality and what is the distinction between those realities that can experience the nama realities and those realities that cannot experience anything, the rupa realities. Otherwise, impossible to understand anything about those common characteristics.
Yes. That,
So it's a good point to get clarified for everyone.
yes, thank you, Sarah. And of course, Ajahn, thank you.
And just to supplement a little bit, nature and characteristic are have the same meaning. So in terms of conditioned dhammas, so what is its characteristic is its nature, and
Yes,
vice versa.
that
Thanks.
makes sense, Jonathan. Yes, thank you.
So now, what appears to be truthful
What appears now is thinking.
But without that which is heard, can anyone think about that which has been heard instantly?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So, May, does the thinking really appear, or we're just thinking about thinking?
I think it's thinking about thinking, Sukin. But as Ajahn often says, there are so many moments of thinking that it's probably a good guess to say that
Well, I
thinking is
think,
appearing.
yeah, also the question was what appears now. And I think one can say something appears to appear anyway. And it's likely to be thinking rather than actually seeing or hearing. More likely to be thinking about what has been seen and heard than the actual seeing and hearing.
Particularly if it's wrong view of people and things, and a question and an answer, and then there's got to be a lot of thinking in all of that.
But just as a reminder, Achan was earlier talking about chitta being the innermost reality, and that in a day what we think in terms of mostly what's the chitta experiences, like sound or visual object, or think about the different cetasikas that arise with the chitta, like anger, aversion, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling. But the chitta itself does not appear. And when we talk about thinking, I think we are referring to the chitta.
So you mean thinking doesn't normally appear?
What I mean is that there is thinking about the concept, and what we actually know thinking by is because at that moment concept is being experienced.
There is the experiences, the chief of experiences, what we call citta for sure, but who think about it? Just think about that which is experienced, or what which appears as present feeling, like or dislike, with delicious food and so on. But who thinks about that which is a chief of experiencing an object, arising together with the other mental factors? But mental factors can appear as like, pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and so on. But who has thought about the reality, which is the inward just experience only? So the other cetasikas perform their function because they arise together with citta, which experience that object. But it's characteristic of ignorance, not understand the truth. And attachment, is there something? When it's something, it is attachment. And when it's wrong understanding, it is different ideas about it as permanent or as I, and so on. That's why all Dhammas are so very subtle. So the only teacher is the Buddha himself. Without him, who can understand the truth of that? So listen to the truth is listen to the enlightened one, because he taught about the truth of what is there as it is in details for 45 years. So each word can condition moment of understand what he said deeper and deeper, more subtle, to let go of the idea of self, which has been accumulated quite long time ago, to be absolutely eradicated one day.
อ
So the teachings of the Buddha is to let go ignorance about what is there now, which takes everything for something permanent, including the idea of thing and what's that? Say something, some sound.
I'd just like to say, Cindy, I'm glad to see you again. Is there anything that we've discussed that you would like clarified, or any comment you'd like to make? Or everything just fine? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Everything's fine. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jonathan.
Good to see you
Thank
here.
you, Sujin.
And Alan, at the very start of the discussion, when you were just started speaking, then we were trying to help Nina join. Was there anything you were hoping to bring up or planning to bring up at the beginning?
We touched on this subject about 3 weeks ago, beauty. We have the notion that certain things are beautiful, flowers are beautiful, people are beautiful, the scenery is beautiful. And finding things beautiful is one condition for attachment. If we don't find things beautiful, then there'll be less attachment. So I just wondered how come we have this idea of beauty? Things are beautiful, aren't they? Or can be.
Because of the perversion of chitta and sanya, so what is actually foul in nature, because whatever arises and falls away, it's actually like a speck of dust arising and falling away. So in fact, it's foul, but it's taken for being beautiful because of the thinking and the memory and the perversion of thinking, taking it for being the sunset that lasts, not understanding it's just a visible object that arises and falls away in a split instant, nothing lasting, nothing of beauty in reality.
But the visible object is has its own nature of being pleasant or unpleasant, and the same with sound.
Right.
But it doesn't last.
Right. And in the deepest sense, even the visible object, which is pleasant, or the softness that is touched now that is pleasant, is actually dukkha, because it arises and falls away and doesn't last at all. So it's still unsatisfactory. Even the great wisdom that we've been talking about a lot, even moments of panya are unsatisfactory because they arise and fall away. So whatever is conditioned in truth is impermanent and foul. Even
so
that
actually,
which is pleasant.
What is seen is not something. So what is seen is actually not attractive, because it's attractive when it's something, isn't it? Like the person or a flower, but actually what is seen is just a reality. So that understanding conditions detachment because it's not attractive.
What's the point of clinging to that which falls away instantly? And like sometimes people think of the hair as so attractive, or the nails, but actually they're just different rupas arising and falling away. Like Ajahn sometimes gives the example, what about if you find the hair in the soup or the fingernail that's broken off? It only seems desirable and attractive when there is the idea of lastingness and the idea of it being part of some beautiful object, but actually each rupa is foul in the deepest sense.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And we should not forget the role of accumulated tendency here, Alan, either, because likes and dislikes have been accumulated. And if we like something, then we find it beautiful, desirable. So that's just the way things are. And even if there is some developed understanding, it doesn't immediately eradicate the liking or the disliking. That accumulated tendency will continue to condition finding things beautiful or not beautiful, as the case may be. However, understanding and seeing things as they really are over a long period of time will lead to the eradication of those unwholesome tendencies.
Yeah.
Some people find the color yellow very beautiful, and some find the color red very beautiful, and some find the color white very beautiful. But whatever it's seen, whatever color, is just visible object. So it's the thinking with clinging and the perversion of sanya and chitta that makes it so beautiful.
So it's also a question of accumulation. It's not just the object, is it? As Jonathan was
The
saying,
tendency
tendency
of attachment to this or that object.
Yeah. I remember, on reflecting about what Chanti's question, because I did go to the holy places, and I remember being disappointed with the relics of the Buddha, because I was expecting something to happen. I was expecting to be enlightened or to have some kind of wisdom, and of course nothing happens. It was a very uninspiring object. So it's not just one moment when you go to a place, it's lots and lots of different moments, unwholesomeness or wholesomeness. But at the same time, of course, if you're at Sanath, which is the place where Buddhism started, that is a cogent reason to remember the first sermon of the Buddha, much more, well, I say more so, but you are likely to remember it. And we were there discussing that first sermon. So to get that opportunity, if you're interested, is very valuable, and it indicates that, again, that's your accumulation. You're there by conditions, but because you're there doesn't mean to say you will have wholesomeness at all.
If one's never heard about that first sermon or never heard about the Buddha's teachings, and one's in that place, then nothing special to recollect. And it's the same with the relics. If there hasn't been any wise consideration about what the relics represent at all, no conditions for anything wholesome at all. So it's a bit like the thinking of the beauty. It depends on the chitta at the moment, just like now.
Yes, yeah.
And that was Chanti's point, I think.
Yeah, I do remember that sutta, and I do remember having the same questions really that Chanti had about that, because especially the bit about dying. If you die when you're there, then you're likely to be reborn in a pleasant place. But of course, it's you're dying with that last moment has to be the confidence in it has to be kusala. So yeah, it was a very useful discussion for me as well, that Chanti brought up. So thank you, Chanti, for that, those questions, because they're valuable for all of us. So
it's invited by Sarah.
Yeah. So yeah, really useful to understand that. So because we read suttas and there's always bits that we don't quite understand or we don't quite get, and that we may get the answer to those suttas many years later, actually, because I kind of, like you, rely on other people asking questions sometimes to get the answers, because with recordings you don't get the chance to ask the questions, but usually the same question will crop up 2 years later. But Zoom is much better because you can actually ask the questions. Yeah, so thank you for that.
And Alan, it's not like when you were at that place and there was no inspiration, and you come to a conclusion that there's no use going to that place. It's just that there was no conditions for kusala. But on another day you might go again, and maybe again no kusala. But that doesn't make place. You come to the conclusion that it's no use going to the place. There could be anytime the conditions for you to be inspired to go for good reason.
Yes, and I think, I mean, it was Jonathan raised the point that actually you end up going there. I didn't expect to go there. I didn't sort of plan. I wasn't thinking I must go there. It's just that those conditions came about, and I was invited to go along, and sort of it was interested, and so I went along. So um, life, that's the way life goes. You may end up in that place, and then you may remember about the teachings of the Buddha by conditions, but not by but attachment to those places is obviously you're going in the opposite direction. Yeah. But it was very useful. I did find it very useful, the discussions there, because we would discuss Buddhism in those places. And of course, when you read the suttas now, you remember the places as well. And so it's a kind of double reminder, if you like. You remember the place, so you remember the sutta, and then you remember the sutta and the place. So I did really enjoy the trip. Yeah.
I think we just have a couple of minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add, Ajahn, before we finish?
About understanding that it's not a place, but it's the understanding no matter where. And we can pay respect to the Buddha at moment when there is the understanding of the truth. And the truth is so very subtle because it's there now, without hearing, considering, understanding the absolute truth, no condition to realize the truth of it as it is, because the truth cannot show up to ignorance. So the understanding of how much ignorance is there is at this very moment, how much understanding of that which is now appearing. For example, when nothing as sound or words or whatever appears, just there, what is that? What is that? No thought about ignorance, but it's the ignorance, unknown, because even ignorance itself cannot be known, because it has to be only panya, which can understand that what moment is ignorance and attachment. Without the teaching, nothing understood at all, as no one there. But it's the moment of ignorance. So in order to understand what is ignorance and what is the characteristic of ignorance, it at the moment when there's no understanding of what is now appearing. So only when there is a little more understanding of the truth, the letting go of ignorance about that which is seeing, but no understanding of seeing, because at that moment there is seeing for sure, but there's no understanding of seeing. So that is moment of ignorance. And at this moment when there is seeing and there is thinking about the truth from hearing, is that which experiences an object, which is seen, only the visible object, which impinge on the eyebase, only once in samsara and then gone. This is the absolute truth. Without experiencing the truth, it's impossible to let go, because there is ignorance all the time, and there is attachment to that which is not known as it, just there at moment when it appears, and even at moment it's now appearing, it also arises and falls away. And this is the truth, the very subtle reality, which is covered up long, long time ago. And it can be understood little by little at this moment of seeing. So at any moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, it depends on conditions. How much moment of thinking, even just thinking about the truth, which has been heard. And this is panya, only panya, which can understand the truth of that very moment. So this is Khanti Parami, Satya Parami, Adidana Parami, Nekama Parami, all Parami, conditioned by right understanding of what is there, little by little. No one without parami, reality now cannot be realized at all. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much.
Thank
Ajahn.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Very lively discussion today.
Thank you.